Hey everybody, Plushie here, and because I kind of ran out of ideas for videos, and we just got the arcade collab finished, I guess it's not really finished, but both banners are out on NA, I just thought I wanted to briefly go over the Ordeal Call 1 servants, because I feel like Ordeal Call 1 is the last big thing after the arcade collab before Anniversary, and this is kind of an awkward period. People might want these characters because they are tied to a brand new story chapter, but at the same time, again, if you've already spent on the arcade collab, you probably want to save for Anniversary as well. So I thought I would just very briefly go over all of the servants kits and talk about how they're generally used, and see if you guys are interested in pulling for them or not. So without further ado, let's get into today's, I guess, brief overview of the Ordeal Call 1 servants. So the first SSR in Ordeal Call 1 is Bhima, who is a story-locked 5-star single-target Lancer. He has a BBQQA deck and a Buster single target MP, and he has pretty decent base gain at a 0.72% per hit on 4 hit quicks and 3 hit arts, and he is lawful good, which gives him synergy with the post buff Duryodhana Saber, but that's about it. I can't really think of anything else, and overall he has nice base stats. And taking a look at his skills, his first skill is a Self Guts for 1 time 3 turns that revives him with 3000 HP, as well as a 30 MP battery and a Self Debuff Cleanse, and it's on a 6-turn cooldown. I think this is a really nice vanilla skill. It gives him the battery, which most servants really want nowadays. It gives him the guts for survival, and it gives him a full debuff cleanse, which is really nice against certain boss fights. His second skill is a 30% Buster Up and a 30% Crit Up for 3 turns, and a 15 Star Bomb, again on a 6-turn cooldown. This is pretty lackluster, I would have to say, in modern standards. It kind of does have a little bit of everything. You know, it has the card type up, it has the crit up, and it even gives him stars to crit with, but the numbers I think could have definitely been a little bit higher, but there could be a reason why they didn't give him that much numbers in skills, because he has a lot of capacity to get more, especially in terms of crit damage. His third skill is a self 30% attack up for 3 turns and a 3-turn self on attack effect, where before he attacks with his quick cards, he would get a 10% crit up for 3 turns, and before he attacks with his buster cards, he would get 5 crit stars, and this is on a 6-turn cooldown. So combined with his second skill, he has 30% attack up, buster up, and crit up. It is actually a really nice mix of different buff types, and this on attack gain buff effect is nice because he can get even more crits with just using his quick cards. These also activate before they do damage, so the quick crits would also get benefited from this, and gaining stars with his buster also helps with his general star generation. So essentially all of his cards other than his 1 arts card will generate stars, which is pretty important for a crit DPS, which he absolutely is. So the skill set is pretty vanilla, but it does everything that you would want in a DPS and gives him full debuff cleanse, which is a nice utility. He has 1 cool passive, which is immunity to poison, and it can matter against certain bosses, and the other 2 is just fine. You know, Divinity gives him synergy with Steno, and you know, debuff res 15% is just nice to have as a little bonus, but mainly the poison immune is really cool. And finally, his MP is a single target Buster MP that has 5 hits that increases his own crit damage by 50% for 3 turns, and it removes all buffs from the target before the MP actually does damage. So the base effects of this MP is already pretty nuts. 50% crit ramp up actually makes him one of the strongest crit DPSs in the game, and unlike some other crit ramping characters, this is actually a Buster MP, so he can use this to buff his crit damage, and the following cards that would crit would also receive the Buster leading bonus. So again, he is one of the strongest crit DPSs in the game because of this, and it also removes all enemies' buffs before damage. I don't think I have to explain how good full buff purge, especially one that is repeatable because it's tied to his MP, is. The overcharge of it is also very interesting. essentially it works the same as Changong and Arash, where when you start overcharging it, he would add 5 extra hits to his MP, and it would also play an extra bit of MP animation, which is super cool. It doesn't do anything at overcharge 1, and at overcharge 2, it would add 200% base scaling to his MP damage. Now, technically, again, it isn't adding base scaling because it's adding 5 extra hits, but you can almost treat it the same. And 200% base scaling is essentially what they use for Buster single target MP upgrade. So the way you can think about it is if he is at overcharge 2, he basically upgrades his MP live, which is pretty nice. But just like an MP upgrade, this works better at lower MP levels than at higher MP levels. So the damage increase in terms of multiplier is diminished at higher MP levels. And this is also why I have to say right here, this effect, as cool as it is mostly bait. I don't think you should build your team around Bhima that also focuses super heavily on giving him extra overcharge. It's nice to have if you want to use him, especially in farming. You can maybe pair him with like Koyan Dark to give him extra overcharge, but if you are using him in a boss fight as a boss killer, you should absolutely focus on his crit damage, because the MP ramping up his crit damage and following it up with a Brave Chain is way more powerful than trying to brute force overcharge, which is a little bit awkward in Buster teams. Yes, I'm aware that Himiko is in fact a real servant, and she actually synergizes well with the Buster Crit playstyle, but I don't really think you need Himiko for Bhima to feel optimal already. He is just a monster even if you completely ignore his overcharge effect. The second SSR from Ordeal Call 1 is going to be Durga, who is a servant that I have at 120. But I already have a hot take on her, so I'm not going to go too deep into her, kit and all that. I'm just going to briefly go over it. She has really high attack stat, like I think top 5 highest attack stat in the game, which is very rare and unusual to be an archer. Like usually those are for like Avengers or Berserkers or sometimes alter egos. Like it just never is the case for archers, but she has it, so it kind of offsets the archer 0.95 multiplier. But she has really crappy gains, 0.3% per hit on 4 hit quick and arts, and she has 2 of those quick cards. Why? It's just so bad. And she's lawful balance, which is really hard to have synergy with. So overall, other than the really high attack stat, this is pretty disappointing. Her first skill is a 50 MP battery and a party-wide overcharge by 1 stage, 1 time 3 turns. It is okay, it's a 50 battery 90% of the time. The overcharge helps her anti-trait on her MP, which is fine. It also synergizes with Castoria, so Castoria can give her more solemn defense. And of course, because she's arts, she's always going to be paired with Castoria. So it's an okay battery skill. I don't really see this being useful in multi-core because Durga herself is not that great in multi-core. It can be, but it's not going to be generally useful, I'd say, especially compared to other good multi-core DPSs like Koyan Dark. And also this is only 1 stage instead of 2 stages, so it doesn't even help like Tonalico that much, for example. Her second skill is a 3 time 3 turn invul and a 3 turn 20% rainbow. Wow, what a crappy skill had it not been for Yui Shosetsu. The invul a lot of times feels very redundant because she's going to be in an arts team, but I guess at least it stacks with solemn defense, so it's very hard for her to even take a hit in a challenge quest boss fight, but I think a lot of times it is wasted. And a 20% rainbow buff is so bad because she doesn't utilize all her cards as well as, let's say, a quick DPS, for example. It's just kind of bad for this character because her quick card is crappy. You never want to pick her quick card, and I would much rather take like a 30% arts plus MP damage up or something, or just 50% arts, because she is going to be all in on her arts MP. And also, considering her third skill increases her MP damage by 30%, but also changes all her cards to arts for a single turn, and it gives her 1 turn of Invul Pierce. So she's supposed to be all in on arts. I think the MP damage up effect being 3 turns and tied to this skill is really bad, because this skill, the other 2 effects, the Invul Pierce and the change is very situational. Like, you should use it when you have the most amount of cards in your hand, but you don't want to because you want the MP damage up to have the highest uptime. So this kind of has a Muramasa issue with the Invul Pierce, where you can't really, you know, save it for a crucial time, and it also just has really bad uptime. It's a 5-turn cooldown for 1 turn effect, and the deck change can be useful in certain cases considering how crappy her quick cards are, but again, you can't really afford to save until you have a bunch of quick cards to use this skill. She would much rather just have her MP damage up effect at as high uptime as possible. There is one saving grace, which is of course the 5-turn cooldown, which, you know, it's kind of short, at least for the MP damage up effect. So overall, I think the skill set is very awkward and very vanilla. Like, this isn't that much better than a character like Summer Kama. You can argue like this is even worse than Summer Kama's skill set, which is an arts looper we've seen like 2-3 years ago, right? The only saving grace is the rainbow buff ended up being good because of Yui Shosetsu specifically. And if you don't bring Yui Shosetsu in your team, who is granted a very good support, especially for boss fights, for art servants with rainbow buffs, then the rainbow buff sucks. So it's kind of disappointing. Her passives are really good though. I think she has Magic Res and Goddess Essence combo, so she has a total of 42.5% debuff resist. It's really difficult to debuff her just in general. And she also has a independent action combo with her special Divinely Bestowed Arms passive, where it's a total of 16% crit up, which is also quite nice. She also has a passive 10% arts up and also a passive 10% quick up, which the quick up, I don't think it matters. Her quick card would suck anyways. Finally, her MP is an 8-hit AoE arts MP that gives her a 1-turn 50% anti-sky power mod before damage, and also reduces all enemies' defense by 20% for 3 turns after damage. And the overcharge is a super effective against demonic trait enemies that scales from 150% all the way up to 200%. So it's a pretty strong MP. It has 2 anti-traits. This does mean that she actually does good card damage against Sky on top of good MP damage. And she can make a bit of stars despite being an art servant. Number 1, she has really high hit counts in her deck in general. Number 2, her MP actually has 8 hits. So if you have like Archer class score especially unlocked, she's gonna be making a decent amount of stars for an art servant. And also one of her best allies in boss killing is Yui Shosetsu, who has a 15 star per turn effect on her skill too as well. So I do believe this is an art servant that has some capacity to do a little bit of card damage. The defense down only affects boss fights. It is a ramp up effect, but it is a debuff after damage, so it doesn't affect farming at all. And the overcharge, again, you can boost it with her skill 1, so natively she can start with overcharge 2, but overall it's just okay. Like, it's standard. So the entire servant ends up being a very dull AoE arts looper for most people, and you know, who has really bad card gain. I really can't be excited about this character, unfortunately. As much as I absolutely adore her design, she is just a 50 MP charging AoE arts looper. Like, yeah, she's okay at boss fighting as well, but if you already have another really strong AoE arts looper like Summer Kama, Space Ishtar, or even Summer Ibuki, I don't really think you would ever want this character gameplay wise. In both Bhima and Durga's banner, there's also the 4-star story locked berserker Duryodhana. He's an AoE arts looper with a double buster double arts deck that has an even worse base gain than Durga at the 0.32% per hit on only 3 hit arts cards and 5 hit quick. So I guess this is a trend with arts loopers in this chapter. His first skill is a 20% party-wide attack up and crit up for 3 turns, and it would randomly increase an ally's critical star absorption by 5,000% for a turn. The skill itself is honestly really good. It is a way better version of a charisma. It also has, of course, the party-wide 30% crit up while still retaining the short 5-turn cooldown. But again, the star absorb up is troll, especially considering his second skill is a self 30% arts up for 3 turns and another 30% crit up for 3 turns. So he has a total of 50% crit up as an arts berserker, which can be really valuable. If you take a look at characters like Summer Ibuki, she also has that, and she has proven to be a pretty strong crit DPS. This is also a 15 star bomb, which further helps him crit. And finally, To tie it all together, his third skill is a targetable 5000% star absorb up for 3 turns, and a star regen effect by 20 stars per turn for 3 turns as well, and he also gains 10% MP every turn for 3 turns, and it reduces all enemies' debuff resistance again for 1 turn by 40% as well. So this is a really good skill set if you really look at it. If we remove the first skill, Troll, because it's a 1-turn star absorber by 5000%, it can completely balance out this targetable one. It's a full-on all-in-one crit kit. It has a 3-turn star absorb up. It has even better star regen than Summer Ibuki. He also has 50% crit up on self, and he even has a star bomb. So he's a really underrated crit DPS in my personal opinion. The regen effect of course helps him loop his MP, and the debuff resistance down by 40% might seem random, but it would no longer seem random when we take a look at his MP. His passive sucks though. Madness Enhancement E, 1% buster up. Sure, dude. The MP is an AoE Arts MP that has 6 hits, that has no base effect, but its overcharge is a 3-turn 20% rainbow resist down that happens before the MP does damage. But of course, the drawback is that it only has a 60% chance to land each of them, so it's calculated separately. This, of course, combos with his third skill's 40% debuff resist down for a turn, so for the first time when he uses the MP, it is guaranteed for all of them to land. The RNG nature of this MP makes him really inconsistent. Otherwise, he would have been a really good arts looper, because 20% arts down before damage is no joke of an effect for an arts looper, especially on a berserker, because arts looping berserkers are still pretty rare nowadays. We only have Ibuki and Musashi, so he's actually a really good like 4-star substitute if he can guarantee this arts down. You can technically bump this to a 70% by just having Oberon on the field, which I do think it's pretty realistic for arts looping. And technically you can guarantee it by cutting one of the Castorias and replacing them with Castrogil. That would provide a total of 40% extra debuff success rate up from Oberon's passive and Castrogil's skill, and his MP would now guarantee the 20% arts down, but it is absolutely not worth cutting a Castoria for that. He also doesn't have a immediate battery, so it's not that easy to arts loop with this guy. I still think he has really good potential in the challenge quest because, again, he has a really strong crit kit, and this Rainbow Down is a ramp up effect if you are hitting the same targets over and over again. You can pair him with Caster Gilgamesh to bump this debuff chance to a whopping 90%, which is, it's still not consistent, but it's almost guaranteed to land, and you just have to pray that at least the Buster and Arts one land, I suppose. He's a really nice consolation prize, I'd say. If you are pulling for Bhima and Durga, it's just kind of unfortunate that his RNG nature prevents him from being like a budget Summer Ibuki. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about Medusa Saber. I know she's technically not one of the banners that released with Ordeal Call 1, but she's an Ordeal Call 1 character who is released in the event right after Ordeal Call 1. So it's basically, an extension of the chapter. And Medusa Copers, you finally got what you've been waiting for, a top tier SSR. She's a single target Quick Saber who has a triple quick deck, and that's really good because she has a whopping 1.14% per hit gain on 4 hit quick cards. That's almost as good as Jack the Ripper, some of the best quick cards in the entire game, and she has 3 of them. Her first skill is a 100% chance to petrify one target, and it also is a 3-turn 50% quick crit up. And it also gives her a 3-turn on attack effect where she is able to give 500 damage curse for 5 turns whenever she attacks with her quick card. So in a vacuum, this is actually not the most insane skill in my opinion. The Petrify is really nice for survival, especially for a quick team, and the 50% quick crit up is really nice because she has 3 quick cards. It's almost as good as just a generic crit up. The on attack give curse thing is basically useless. I've never have it be useful in any way. Like, I don't really pair her with Van Gogh either, so I don't know why that's there, but it's still okay, mainly just used for a crit damage boost, but nice. Her second skill is a 50 MP battery and a party-wide 20% attack up for 3 turns and 30% crit up for 3 turns for all demonic allies. So when you first look at this, you would imagine Medusa Saber is demonic, but she actually isn't. So very unfortunately, I think the crit up for demonic ally effect is also usually just dead because you're using her as a main DPS 99% of the time. At the very least, this is a charisma tied to a 50 MP battery, so this not just makes her challenge quest MP immediately easy to spam, this also makes her really good in multi-core farming because charisma plus big battery is just good. And finally, her third skill is a 3x3 turn invul, 3x3 turn debuff immunity, and crit resist up by 30% for 3 turns for self. This is a very good defensive skill. The invul, obviously, again, blocks MP and blocks hits in general, and it's 3x3 turns, so she can just use it whenever and not feel like it's wasted. The debuff immunity for 3x3 turns as well means that she can block some of the most devastating, like, on break debuffs, for example, and it is not as susceptible as a 1x3 turn immunity. And finally, the crit resist up is just an extra layer of insurance, so she doesn't die from a straight crit even if she gets focus fired. Her passives are nice, 20% extra debuff res, never hurt nobody. And Riding A, 10% quick up, really good because she has 3 quick cards and a quick MP. And finally, her MP is a single target 9-hit quick MP that deals a set 150% super effective damage against man, has a 40% chance to petrify the target, and it also buffs all Earth attribute allies attack by 20% for 3 turns after the MP does damage. Because she is included in it this time, she is Earth, so to herself this is a ramp up effect. And finally, the overcharge effect is a 1-turn quick up before the MP does damage that scales from 10% all the way up to 30%. It's complete crap, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. So the MP itself is powerful because, first of all, 9-hit single target with a base gain of 1.14% per hit, she can loop her MP, which is really rare for single target quicks. Like, they almost never have the ability to loop their MP, while Medusa Saber can loop her MP probably better than a lot of single target Art Sabers. So yeah, there you go, good internals. Anti-Man is also a really good anti-trait because it's technically 1/3 of all servants. It's actually more than 1/3 of all servants. So I guess that's why it doesn't scale with overcharge, but I still think it absolutely should have scaled with overcharge. The petrify is not that reliable at all. 40% is really crappy. And the attack up, again, this is a ramp up effect for herself because she is Earth this time, unlike the demonic crit up from her skill 2. But it is after damage, and this can also help her if you use her in multi-core. This combined with her second skill means that she will buff Earth allies by 40% attack up, which is really nice. Overall, there are a couple of very awkward things in her skill set, like how the demonic crit up doesn't count herself, or how her overcharge really sucks, and her spammable petrify on her MP is really unreliable. But she has enough good effects, like the ramp up attack, like the big battery, like the anti-man, and also absolutely insane internals that I think she is absolutely a top tier saber. She's probably one of the best or even the best single target saber boss killer in the game, and she even has some kind of farming utility, especially when you pair her with other Earth servants. So overall, these servants might not be the most flashy characters ever, but they are definitely top tier within their respective classes. Medusa Saber is probably going to be the most generally useful because she's good in farming, good in boss killing, and even good in solos, and she's basically the answer to the question of what if we took one of those year 1 servants with ridiculous internals but give them an actual modern kit, and the result is arguably one of the strongest single target sabers in the game. Bhima has the highest ceiling out of these 3 characters just because of how ridiculous his crits are. He is, again, one of the strongest crit DPSs in the game, who also has a strong MP, so he's just a monster against bosses. I definitely use him outside of just versus archers and berserkers. He is universally a very strong buster DPS. Like, you can use him neutral. for sure. He also has really strong anti-boss gimmicks with the full debuff cleanse on his skill 1 and the full buff purge that's spammable on his MP. And again, if you want to force it, he technically has universal anti-trade in the form of his overcharge as well. Unfortunately, Durga is probably the most boring one. Yes, she is solid and she's the easiest to use, but she's just an AoE Arch Looper with 50 MP battery. Her really strong suit is probably the fact that she has 2 anti-traits on her MP, and she has decent amounts of base damage in terms of Arch Looping, at least compared to other archers. But if you already have another good AoE Arch Looper, it's very difficult to justify pulling for Durga. And Duryodhana is a nice little consolation prize. I don't think he is as unique as, let's say, someone like a Locusta or even someone like Cagliostro, who's the limited or story lock 4-star from Ordeal Call 2. He's kind of just a really solid arts crit berserker. Like, I really don't want to undersell how actually solid he is, but again, his role isn't the most, like, you know, sought after, and if you already have someone like Summer Ibuki, you probably would never use him. But he's still good though. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this sort of messy random video while you are farming away, no matter if you're in NA for Lilim Harlot or JP for the Gouda rerun.